Here is something you can build to bind your communities together, or like a city pool. Either way, this video shows you how. You see in the picture the country club of the middle class with fish raised over ponds and topsy-turvy hanging gardens and garden walls. Here you see carnivores or herbivores, you decide. It's all about temperature. So you can build yourself a plastic on pipe greenhouse and a fish tank with what you want. Here's an example of cheap thermal logs. Freshwater prawns or freshwater lobster, like we raised in ponds in New South Wales, Australia. So how would you build this? Well, straw logs can be produced wherever there's wheat, rice, or hay straw left in the fields. It's just fiber, wood fiber, with a new PTO thresher and log maker, relatively cheap, on the back of a small tractor. Or you can use bales of straw as we did. But you will need one of these stucco gunite machines that mix Portland, lime, and perlite volcanic ash as the waterproof cement coating. This was an Eagle Scout badge project we two conducted in spring and finished before the first snow of winter. The plan was to run 3 rows of compost-filled barrel pillars, I guess, and top with clear roofing to make a greenhouse with thermal walls for year-round growing of everything valuable on the walls, not on the floor. Machines vary. This is a Mercedes diesel and a 2-yard mixer that pumps or sprays, and you trowel and smooth with a wet sponge. Knowing the machine and the mixes made building the concert center in a single summer quite easy. But plasters, homemade or bought, are expensive. So here is an improvement that began with a retrofitting a Troy-built chipper shredder to chip the foam down to beads and bits and make a super light thermal concrete with Portland and lime. And you can also add plastics, which would take many things out of the landfill or keep them from going. So, Annie, get your guns. There are a host of mixes you can make by adding all those plastic containers to your chipper and make a super plaster. It is so easy to recycle styrofoam. You can get it everywhere. Just people bring it by. As you see in this van, we filled it up in no time. Sears and all the box stores have just acres of it. Why let it go into landfill? Why not use it? Ellensburg Cement, Yakima Cement gave me a tour of their facilities. We talked about all these applications of using styrofoam that they do for framing and such, but why not mix it with the cement and have a styrofoam concrete? 36,000 pounds compression strength. It floats in water. You can hold a 1-inch thick piece of this styrofoam concrete in your hand with an acetylene torch and you don't even feel the heat. Okay, kids, patriots and preppers, what is the future we're preparing for? Well, seriously, Fukushima was not fixed by the Japanese because they've been in a depression for 20 years, gradual. And the situation there is going to eventually fall off into the sea, and it's going to impact our west coast. And so why not be prepared for this inevitability? China, Formosa, Taiwan, the beautiful island. Here is Destination Costa Rica, building a shrimp farm in Costa Rica. It's a 1989 full-page newspaper article written by the author, whatever, and it describes actually 10, 15 years before then, driving from Florida to essentially Panama along the coastline and checking out all the bays and seeing, what can be done in terms of aquaculture. And the important thing about this picture is to look at the top. That is a farm in Taiwan. But you know what? That farm is not freshwater. That's saltwater that's pumped up the river in pipes. And the farmers fill their ponds with seawater and raise tiger prawns. So what does that mean? Well, it means you have total control over your farming situation, the environment. There's no net pens out in the bay polluting all the natural elements. Everything is controlled. And so it's really an advance in aquaculture technique and technology that essentially we're trying to propose here. Now, the farm that we had there, about the time we got it going, the hectare of land, our Bay of Tarcoles was quarantined from pollution from San Jose all the way down. People just dump all their trash, garbage, chemicals into the river, and it goes into the bay and out in the ocean. What else could you do? We quit. We walked away from it, just left it. Tools, equipment, vans, everything. So be it. But we didn't quit the idea behind it of advancing aquaculture and making it self-sufficient, can you say? So this is the patent filed with the help of Texas A&M Sea Grant and Port Aransas, how to build on-land ponds for fish and prawns. And it also shows that this can also be used as a water treatment system in villages, capturing at least solids and junk and plastic and styrofoam and stuff. And it's something that every village should have instead of letting all the material go out into the ocean. And it's extremely simple because we modified with Pawnee Plastics in Portland, Oregon, we modified their truck liner panels, the HDPE big black liner panels that pickup trucks. And they made panels assembled so that the farmers could easily assemble these. So friends, that was I guess what we could call the collective learning experience that began with UW and then Taiwan and then Costa Rica and then Texas A&M Sea Grant and then prawn farming in Australia, and kind of bring that information and knowledge and experience back here and to build a aquaponic greenhouse and park so that at least some of these things we can continue to learn about. So it begins with trout ponds for water conservation and water preservation. And we go to now to the question that Habitat for Humanity asked, what will you build? So can you build your community center for your community? This is one model design you can copy and use if you want. You can see the horseshoe design square box for the topsy-turvy growing of any kind of produce in a greenhouse with everything planted on the walls, the ceilings, and gardens on water with fish and prawns under the fish. You can see in this prototype where we experimented with rafters for hanging gardens and asparagus and PVC, which now we're putting asparagus basically in pallets. So we're not using the styrofoam concrete in this particular example because we want to offer a technology that is recycled, free, and something that every community can apply easily. So here is the simplified version that every community can use. Why? Because recycled pallets, they're free, they're everywhere, super abundant. You put them on a wall, a fence wall, like this is done here. We just run the concrete post down the center, like build a Cox fence, and drop your pallets down. And they're plywooded on both sides, and you double thickness. That way you can have garden walls on the outside and garden walls on the inside, filled with compost and soil from the county. So Habitat asked, what will you build? Well, this is what we're building. We started out, since we're building a science park for kids. We start with kids and patriots and preppers. We started out with a nest for the local eagles. Then, so since America is the new covenant nation under the Ark of the Rainbow, of course we kept the eagle nest and just built the aquaponic center underneath, so the eagle can kind of be a watchman for our project here. So here it is, double-walled pallets, recycled and free, mostly, set on 4x6 post and concrete, filled with composted soil and faced with fabric for wall plantings with fish tanks, steel or concrete inside. These probably will be concrete raceways 4 feet out and 3 feet high. This was just a summer project for 2 guys, retired, semi-retired, with recycled products, and thanks to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, well actually Matthew's Lumber kind of donated some materials that they put on the side, and so thank you for Matthews. Real quick, there's 2 pictures here. The top picture is the residential model that shows how anyone who has a south-facing fence can put pallets on it and put the fabric on top of the pallets and plant their asparagus walls. And then at the bottom, as you see, it'll have well, you can plant anything you want, tomatoes, whatever, beans. And also we have truck tires that are filled with compost too, which really are a water conservation. You think about it, you look at these, you see that there's no weeds. And if there's no weeds, you're not watering the weeds, you're just watering your plants. So this is water conservation at its best. So the truck tires and the tractor tires that we have filled with compost and soil actually are situated with a circular ring of corn plants with tomatoes suspended to the corn plants and bell peppers suspended inside. So you have a three-tier system, and it's so super efficient. You water it once, and the tire holds the water and becomes like an aquaponic growing facility. So kids, preppers, and patriots, what will you build? Here's the model: the Aqua Agri Fish Corral with wall gardens, hanging gardens, and a glass roof. And you know, they also have clear solar panels for roofing too. So it's all up to you, my friends. Build what you will, but build it well, and build it for the community.